Hello everybody. We are really happy to be here virtually with you. So welcome to our talk called Achieving a High Score While Onboarding New Writers in the Post-COVID Era. Wow, it's a huge title. My name is Lluís Cavallé, and with my colleague, my peer, my buddy, Darren Fennessy, we propose you to play a pinball game for about 20 minutes or so. So prepare your euro or zloty coin, insert it, and let's have some fun. Before we start, let me introduce ourselves. So as said, I'm Lluís, and please, Darren, introduce you.
Hi, everybody. I hope we're coming through loud and clear. We're sorry we couldn't be there with all of you to enjoy the conference in person. My name is Darren Fennessy. I'm a technical writer with Red Hat in Waterford, Ireland, in the sunny southeast. While I'm not sitting at my desk writing, I like to keep moving, punching, kicking, teaching, and training in karate, which I've been doing for about 25 years at this stage.
And I am Lluís. Well, as you've seen, you don't have to mess with Darren because he can kick your ass out, but well, so my name is Lluís Cavallé. I'm based in, I think, even sunnier Barcelona, in Catalonia, and I've recently joined Red Hat as a technical writer after working almost for 15 years as a translator and interpreter. For me, I felt it was time to produce actual tests that would translate complicated content to useful copies. And while I'm not writing and editing, I love to travel as much as possible, to attend my favorite band gigs, to sample some new food and play video games with a special focus on arcade classics. Actually, that picture, it's me playing an old Star Wars game in a retro event in Barcelona. So, what we are going to talk about, we will try to explain you a bit how is the onboarding process for an organization like Red Hat during these almost post-pandemic times. For this, let's take a look to the structure of our talk. You can see stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So are we talking about a video game? Well, we are proposing, as said, a pinball game. How is that? Because we feel that onboarding a new writer in your team can be compared to a game of this kind. After inserting the coin, when you're hired, you start by launching the ball, and as it happens in most games, you will be completing different stages in order to reach several milestones aligned with your onboarding experience. The final target is to achieve a high score. That's the moment when you're a full contributor to your team. Then we will share some conclusions related to this process, and we will love also to hear about your own experience. So we'll have some minutes for comments, questions, feedback, and that's it. So I invite you to enter the gaming parlor, prepare and set your coin to engage in an exciting pinball game. First thing first, what is a pinball game? I've just mentioned it like 3 times. Pinball, it's an arcade game which balls basically rolls and it's propelled inside the machine, hitting various lights, bumpers, ramps, and other targets depending on its design. The game's object is generally to score as many points as possible by hitting those targets and making various shots with flippers before the ball is lost. Here you have some examples from a circuit location in Barcelona, and the analogy with an onboarding process goes further than assuming it is a game. It is more like a process where you are given some tools to achieve a specific goal, that is to become a writer completely integrated to your team. So let's see how we can do it. Darren, you have the floor.
Thanks very much, Lluís. So let's start by inserting the coin and starting our game. You've been hired. Don't panic. Don't worry. You've gone through a long hiring process, which probably included a handful of interviews, a test of your practical skills and knowledge, and you deserve to be there, so stay calm. What's next, you may ask? So as a bare minimum, you will have received a laptop and support setting it up, hopefully. For onboarding, you have no idea what to expect. Ideally, your manager will have set up one-on-ones going forward to support you, and there will be a continuous line of open communication. Now, your manager will also have organized a onboarding buddy for you, hopefully. Now, what you may ask is an onboarding buddy? Well, usually is someone who's an experienced team member who will help you and guide you through your journey, helping you to get to know the organization, the team, the tools, and much, much more throughout. So it will be quite a lot to take in at the beginning, but breathe and take it easy because you know you're going to have support all of the way through. Back to you, Lluís.
Thanks, Darren. So, after inserting the coin and gaining some credits, the fun really starts by launching the ball. Well, here you have the rumble when the ball goes through it. And actually, you know when you launch the ball, but you're still not really sure about what is going on. So you try not to lose it, but it's not that easy since many things happen at the same time. You start meeting a bunch of people, maybe randomly, your manager, some of your peers, people approaching you, talking to you, greeting you and welcoming you. But also you are required to start doing some stuff like configuring your laptop and the tools you'll be using, and also some credentials, introducing complicated passwords and things like that. And maybe you even start to have an idea of your immediate goals further than completing your trainings. Like in the pinball in the pinball table, at the beginning you hit the ball to avoid losing it, and while you hit it more and more times, you start to realize that there is a logic behind, and you may even realize that between the huge amount of information you have, there is something especially useful. What in Red Hat is called the onboarding checklist. The name speaks by itself. That would act as a guide of the things that you really have to do, the targets that you must hit to get the more points. Back to you, Darren.
Thanks, Lluís. So as Lluís just alluded to, you're probably going to want to hit and aim for targets and milestones. And just going back to our analogy of the pinball, one of those is hitting a million and a million plus. You've gone through probably 30 days and a lot has happened. You're having mixed feelings, being overwhelmed by information overload in those first few weeks. But that's normal. The good news is that your support network will have grown and connections will have grown in those weeks. The tools of the trade will be a lot more familiar to you by now. And best of all, you'll be checking in regularly with your manager and your buddy for technical as well as moral support. But most probably also you will know a lot of software engineers, depending on your role, quality engineers, customer support engineers, and so on, as well as probably a wider network of writers outside of your team and your current peers. So as your goals grow and your objectives become more clear, your confidence is most likely starting to grow along with this as well. And you will have a clear set of objectives to move towards with lots of guidance along the way. Back to you, Lluís.
Thank you. So this is becoming more and more serious, also more and more interesting, we hope so. In the previous stage, you've been able to start scoring points. You have hit some targets, maybe by chance, who knows. But you have also properly set up targets like properly set up your filters in your email account, change the status of a Jira ticket or the versioning control system that you may use within your organization. But that famous onboarding checklist requires you to enroll and complete trainings to know the company you are working for, its products, its services, and culture. And also you have to start completing tooling and style training so you can start doing actual work. So that is why we call this stage the unlock missions. Again, your body acts a little bit as your savior. That person which will tell you which missions are the most important to unlock at the beginning and after, and even better, that person will guide you and help you to complete all of them, or almost. Back to you, Darren.
So there's nothing like completing that first mission. You will have had a walkthrough your body, and you will have high-ish confidence, I think, by this stage. You'll be well into your 90 days and eager to contribute to the team. As eager as you were at the beginning, in fact, but now you have a lot more behind that. So it's time to get stuck in and work alone, but knowing, of course, that you're never alone and that you have complete support behind you all the way. Your product training and knowledge that you will have gained will help you through this stage, and the tasks that you have to complete will be something that was chosen especially for you. And you you will be able to get this done, no problem. You'll be working end to end with those engineers and QE people that you've made connections with. This is going to be no problem for you. You will complete this mission with as little effort as possible, and you'll be able to shout huzzah at the end.
I like that huzzah thing, Darren. So you've completed a mission, and then you start completing other missions, you start completing other tasks, and when this happens while playing pinball, you may unlock what is called a multi-ball. So it's when you have 2, 3, even sometimes 4 balls at the same time, and you feel a little bit like at the beginning that you're hitting things and you don't know, you have an idea, but you don't know that well what are you doing. But in fact, at this stage, you're a real contributor because you're able to do several things at the same time, managing those several balls at the same time. You are able to complete tasks, you've completed most of the trainings and even engage in some parallel trainings, or even propose the company some talks or to share some knowledge. You also start to socialize. So you have set up your recurrent meetings and calls, even remotely, and also you manage task, requests, and bugs from the customers you are documenting for. Back to you, Darren.
Thanks, Luis. So, coming to the end of your 90 days, approximately, onboarding process, just like in the game, as in life, you want to achieve high scores and gain recognition. There's nothing like completing that game and getting your initials on the leaderboard. Your name known by the team, and you feel like that you're a contributor, and you're known within your group and outside your group by that broader network. In essence, the student at this stage has, or at least is on their way to becoming the master. You are at a point where you can feel confident about suggesting improvements in processes, and even probably teaching newer technical writers in onboarding as well. So you strive to keep learning just as you have from the beginning and keep living the dream. Thank you for your time, everyone. But we have also some conclusions that we feel we've had in our time in onboarding and being buddies. So one thing is to have a great and evolving being very important, onboarding checklist. Have training in place for buddies who also get nervous if they're trying to help someone come along and be successful. Always seek support, ask questions, be curious, stay positive, and above all, breathe. And there's also a few things probably we shouldn't do at the beginning and even while we're experienced. Don't rush. In most organizations, I would say, you don't have to hit the ground running on day one, even though you may want to and feel that you can. Endeavor not to panic. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them. And that has been Lluís Cavallé and Darren Fennessy. Thank you. I will leave you with some testimonials from our fellow peers at Red Hat.
Maybe those testimonials can help you, to inspire you, or if you want to share some experience that you had before COVID, during COVID, after COVID, what you've learned, what you will do, won't do. Actually, there is one interesting, the first one by Tova Cohen. It's a peer of us in our team. At the time she joined the company several years ago, she told us that as it states, that the onboarding process was really good, but some of the materials were really outdated in terms of broken links, broken URLs, sections with a different name. So that wasted most of her time and caused a lot of confusion.
I'm sorry, I got distracted sometime in the middle. Have you finished your presentation, or is it still going on? Because
we did thank and have a conclusion, and we ask if anyone has any questions.
Yes, okay, so exactly, that's the time for questions. I was surprised by hearing the clapping and then hearing you talking again, and I was like, what's going on? Okay, do we have, yes, we have questions. Where are the people with microphones?
Actually, I have a question. There was some clapping because we can't hear the audience, so I'm really happy to.
Yeah, we have some questions, but people with the microphones are gone for some reason.
Oh, thanks for calling everyone.
But if you have access to the Slack channel, and there are probably some questions there, so can we start with this one? Do you hear me?
There's a question by Lana Beleshko. Darren, she asked, how not to panic if you're a coach, a buddy?
Well, in my experience, I've been a buddy twice, and I think the answer to this is make sure that, well, hopefully you've gone through some training, and that training is comprehensive, and it helps you be confident with the process that's in place already. You get to talk also with your manager about this, not just head off yourself into the wilderness. And there's still always going to be nerves, but panic would be the extreme version, I think, of that. But that's a very good question. Just be confident in yourself and your knowledge of what you already have. And in my experience, it has always been fine. It has always worked out.
Any questions from the audience? Because I already have a mic for you.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I have a question regarding the onboarding process. So how has it changed before the pandemic and during the pandemic? Did you have some experience regarding remote onboarding already before the pandemic, or was this something new and you also had to switch as coaches, as buddies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I personally had no virtual experience before the pandemic. I'd always, in my total of 2, my previous buddy experience was not virtual. So there was a lot had to be lined up, I think, even more so with the virtual experience. Luckily enough, Red Hat has always had a remote workforce in place, so there has been the checklist that was in place has always garnered for that. But there's always been room for improvement, and it has improved over the course of the last 2 years in terms of the approach to the virtual onboarding process.
Also, the virtual onboarding process has positive sides and negative sides. One of the most positive one, I think, and actually it's happening to us, it's our team is located in many different places. Like I'm based in Barcelona, Darren, he's based in Ireland, and we have writers in the US. So this was not possible before the COVID, in the sense that if you are expected to follow an in-person training, that limited to hire people for a specific location. So I think this is a good side.
Okay, any more questions?
I see a question from Pavel.
Okay, go ahead with the virtual question, and then we have a question in the room here, one more.
Thanks, Pavel. Yeah, the challenges are different.
Maybe you can, sorry, Darren, to interrupt. Maybe you can read it for the audience?
Oh yes, I thought everyone could see it. My apologies. So who defines the onboarding scope for new joiners? Oftentimes the challenge is not exactly learning the individual pieces like company culture or a particular tool, but figuring out how they relate to one another. Yeah, that's a very good question. One of the things I found particularly about Red Hat is that that they coming from an open source culture, particularly, was that we have a lot of people coming in who know the culture, or who think they know the culture, or have an idea about the culture of Red Hat. But what they're surprised about when they actually join Red Hat is that Red Hat is living that culture, and they are actually then, they get to experience it firsthand, almost from day one, this approach that it's kind of a flat structure, and everyone is approachable no matter what their level in the organization. So yeah, I think it's been different with Red Hat in particular for new joiners who've done their research, and if they've gone through the interview process, they probably have gone and they've got hired. They probably have done their research and they have certain expectations. But when they join, the surprise is that Red Hat is actually living up to those expectations. I hope that answers your question, Pavel.
Hi, I'm Miaja. I have a question about not full-time work. If you have any experience with people working not only flexible hours, but also not full-time. So did you see any challenges or changes if you have to onboard completely on remote someone who's just part-time?
Well, actually, a peer of us, Tova, she's working part-time, 50%, and only 4 days a week. So at the end, it's a matter of organization. You align with that person's schedule and also time zone, because she's based in the US, so it's 6 hours difference. And well, the challenge here, it's more a logistic one, in the sense that you just try to align with that person's schedule, and that's it. I don't think it will add any more difficulty besides that.
So I have another question on Slack from Mikhail. How often should you meet with the person being onboarded remotely? In the traditional onboarding, the contact between people occurs more naturally because they are in the same location. Yeah, I totally agree with the traditional onboarding contact. The ability to be able to walk over and tap someone on the shoulder is second to none. I think it can't be wholly replaced by the remote virtual experience. However, I think we mentioned it with this experience. I've been onboarding Lluís, and I think we did set up recurring meetings, but what we tend to see happen is that Lluís was almost able to tap me on the shoulder by just sending me a quick message on our chat, internal chat, and saying, "Hey, can we have a talk for a few minutes?" And it worked like a dream, I think. And may I say, Lluís has been a dream to onboard and work with and become friends with, dare I say it, over these last few months. So I think there are challenges remotely, and a dynamic at some point has to exist between you and your buddy if you're being onboarded, and vice versa, where they can drop you a line to say, can we meet? And if you're in the middle of a meeting or another challenging part of your work, you can say, let's do that in an hour, or let's do that in 5 minutes. So I think, yeah, it's about flexibility from both.
I must confess that working remotely with Darren, but thanks for your words, but I'm happy to be remotely working with you, because I don't want to be hit by a karate master as you are, so I'm happy with that side of the remote thing, and sorry for the podcast.
Tapping me on the shoulder, it's fine. I tend to look first rather than react.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions in the room? Okay, one more.
Hi, I'm Barbara. I wonder if you could share with us some tricks, some examples that worked for you, like you meet people on Teams or whatever, Zoom. Do you like prepare presentations or something? What worked for you?
So I'll try to ask to answer this. At the beginning, your first contact is your manager. Actually, it's the person that may has hired you. So that person will establish recurrent calls, recurrent meetings, and as the process goes, she or he, well, the person will introduce you to the rest of the team virtually, remotely, and since many teams do have recurrent calls like maybe daily stand-ups or weekly meets, those are the occasion to first introduce yourself, and then little by little you start to know people. At Red Hat, we use the Google Suite, and it has, apart from the Google Chat, it has what they call the Google Spaces. So it works more or less similar to Slack. So in those spaces, there are several channels where dedicated to more to discuss working things, but also to with more a social side or even interest side. So and you are actually encouraged to engage there and share your interest, and so this is a little bit the way they follow to socialize with the rest of the team and the company, even remotely. I hope that answers your question.
I see another question on Slack. Tomasz, when typically do you start giving a new joiner standard tasks? That's a very good question. I think Luis was very eager to start and contribute very quickly. I think it's the job of the buddy to, and maybe the manager as well, of course, to make it clear that there's no rush at the beginning and that there's a lot to learn. We have an internal learning system called Red Hat University. You're encouraged to take particular courses and training sessions to learn tools. Some are self-driven, some are led by course leaders online. There are various different ways of doing these. I think it's almost like just getting the individual to pull back and remember that there's a lot to learn and there's no rush. But when would you start giving the new joiner tasks? I would say within the first 60 days, probably, or after the first month is what I'm trying to say, because of the amount of overload of information that person has, particularly feel like that has been thrown at them from the beginning. It takes a while for that to sink in. And usually we do a walkthrough task together. And then and only then, you know, it's going to be different for everyone, of course. When someone feels confident enough, would they run with a standard task when all the gears are in place, I think. There's no specific timeline. I mean, 60 days, 30 days, 45 days. It's all the individual in my experience.
Okay, thank you.
And I've had that feedback from many different other, we did little surveys, apologies for cutting across you. We did surveys with other new joiners and talked with them, and they were so happy and surprised about the amount of time that they were given to settle in before taking on tasks. So I think people should be given that space when at all possible. Thanks, Tomasz.
Okay, thank you guys for your questions. Thank you, Darren, Lluís, for your presentation.